Welcome to the Rampant Discourse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Paul Essen, and we're joined once again by our Andrew replacement.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Kelly.
And I'm Travis Hudson.
And Travis, what are we doing? It's a surprise every evening. What are we doing this evening?
Every evening, but this evening brought to you by Subway because we're on 15.
Wasn't that like a Herman Cain thing, like his 555 plan?
5. You're talking politics. I don't know politics.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is that too recent?
That was like
I know Subway.
ago.
I know Subway ads, Paul. Come on.
Yeah, okay. All right.
That's a $5 foot long.
Yes, $5 foot long.
$5
Just like
foot
DDP
long.
was always like two time. I'm like, why did you say it 3 times? So I think it's based on what you said on your preference last time, Jeremy. I think it's good that you're on for the episode where there's an actual IPA.
You know, as it turns out, I may have predicted that.
I thought you were referring to the girl in the bikini.
No, yes, certainly. I mean, this is one of the most attractive bottles of beer or cans of beer I've ever. This is my 15. As I said, I still label my my beers.
Yeah. Although I think Andrew would appreciate this one because it's a vague Jennifer Connelly vibes from at least the face.
She is so we're all mathematicians, right? We all went to school for a technical field, and
Okay, where's this going?
yeah, where's this going? Right.
She's a perfect 10.
So so the problem with the perfect 10 is that we understand, mathematically speaking, there can be like only one. There's a bell curve, and there's only a couple 3 sigma events that take place, no matter how big the bell curve is, right? So I've got 110 that I can't even mention because, as Travis mentioned last time, I am severely Catholic. So I am unable to look her up because of impure thoughts. But Jennifer Connelly is one of my very few 9s. Again, the bell curve.
You are a good Andrew stand-in.
Yeah. She's a 9. She is a good-looking woman.
I'm really curious if the 10 is like a porn star or something now.
She is not, because again, I am unable to do that. But she is an Instagram model that I accidentally came across and stopped looking her up.
No, I can commiserate with that. We should probably pour the beer while we're talking, but like,
Okay.
and then we can get into it. But yeah, whenever I go to Instagram and I go to the search feature, until I click on the search bar, it's like nothing but like women shaking their butts, pretty much. I'm like, I don't follow everything I follow on Instagram is Nintendo and board games.
You sound so old right now, you realize.
Like,
It's all about the women shaking their butts.
They're shaking their booties at me. Like,
Well, to be fair, he does turn 41 soon.
Oh my god, that's so old. That's so much older than 40.
I'm still the oldest. In fact, Jeremy's the youngest.
You're still? Are you planning on having that change?
Oh yeah, I always love that phrase. When I was your age, like you were never my age. We were always different ages. Sorry, I'll shut up.
So, what do you know about this one?
Ooh.
Okay, so
Besides that you like the can.
All right,
I like the
I
smell.
do like the can, and there's a decent amount. Although she looks like she's falling to her death. That's what I'm going to say. But Jennifer Connelly is a 9, so I will.
Well, she looks like that, but we're going to get to the beer eventually. But like, I think she's supposed to be in like a porthole or something. She's not falling. Like, I think that's like a port. Like she's in a bunker or a submarine.
But there's a lot of cracks there. I feel like this submarine's about to get really depressurized.
Oh yeah, no,
rapidly.
she's in danger. That's why she looks scared.
She's a damsel in
Or she's
distress.
on the outside of a submarine trying to get in.
Yeah. Because you can see her legs. She's like, we have never analyzed the can this much. She's
Yeah.
like,
No.
she's like swimming.
How about the lady with like that 12 beers in her hands and everything?
Oh yeah. Mary Hausbrendel Hell.
Yeah.
That is exactly how you should carry your beer.
Andrew did explain to us physically how that works. Apparently,
Or how heavy it was.
yeah.
Like the force diagram.
He didn't break out a whiteboard or anything, but he knew like he's a chemist, so he knows how much everything weighs and density and all that stuff.
I believe he was using a lot of metric, which is annoying.
And also, I said that to my dad at one point. I said, He said, how long is that? And I said, well, about 2 centimeters. And he said, speak English. So I did think that was pretty good.
He's not wrong. He is actually for English units, right?
Yeah, right. That is fair.
Damn Frenchie.
Okay, so an IPA. So last time I want to correct myself a little bit because I realized why I was off on the 4 basic ingredients of beer. So it's water, and yeast does count, and hops are also in there. But the thing that threw me off is that it's not, as you said, malt. It is any kind of grain, which of course malt falls under the type of grain. But that could be barley, and that's why we wanted to say malt and barley at the same time. I was thrown off by that. But basically, we need some grain to actually pull the sugar. Well, as it turns out, and I think that I said this last time, I can't remember, it was so long ago, that hops are actually not a necessary ingredient to the process. So originally, when beer was made, it was made by the woman of the home, and she would make enough beer for a couple days, and then everybody would drink their beer, and then they would move on with life, right? But they didn't need any preservatives because you're just making your beer for yourself. You make a couple gallons, and you drink your beer, and then you move along your way, and you make a couple more gallons or a gallon or whatever.
Well, Paul's reacting like that. I mean, like, if you're drinking beer like water, you're going to need gallons of beer.
Right.
Yes. You don't usually measure beer in gallons as far as I'm concerned.
So actually, that's really funny because that's exactly what a fifth stands for. Now, I know that fifth is not for a you don't normally measure beer in fifths, but a fifth is for a fifth of a gallon, right? It just happened to be really, really close to 750 milliliters. So they're like, it's close. So the woman of the house would, and this is a long time ago, so I shouldn't get in trouble for referring to something in 13,000 BC as woman of the house. But she would make the beer, in her little cave with her little drawing. While between drawings on the wall, she decided that she wanted to make some beer. But she only used the 3 ingredients, and that was water and yeast and some sort of grain, which was typically wheat, but barley, stuff. So the reason that hops started stepping into the process is not just for the flavor. And by the way, if you have never had the opportunity to eat a hop fresh, then you don't know what you're missing.
If you go on the Flying Dog Brewery tour, they have you taste each ingredient along the way.
Oh my goodness.
It is not something I want to eat again.
Oh no, it'll make your eyes change sockets, that's for sure. So what they started doing was when you had somebody making beer for more than one person, or while you were trying to preserve it, what would happen is that they started adding hops. They already realized that hops had a couple medicinal purposes, but one of them is a preservative. And so they started adding hops to it. So it tastes better, and it actually ended up lasting longer. Now, to the IPA part. So although we're Americans, we're probably not very good at geography. In fact, I'm not even very good at remembering the name of it. But there's a big distance between England and India. So what they would do for the long trip is they would overhop it so it would make the trip. And that's what you're actually tasting here. Now, to many...
So hold on. So it's called Indian Pale Ale, not because it was made in India or the only association is they made it so that it would last on the boat until they got to India.
Correct.
Huh.
Right. And so they over-hopped it, and they hopped the hell out of it, making a reference to the last beer that we had so long ago. So they would over-hop it. And then people, of course, just like anything else, like Scotch, you've got the peat flavor, and with any defining characteristic, somebody tries to maximize it. So one of the strongest flavors of IPAs is over on the West Coast. You have Stone Brewery that makes what we call, like, they pretty much define the West Coast IPA. And this is the kind that just blows out your palate. You're good for one beer. Don't ever try to taste a beer afterwards because you're not going to be able to taste anything. So they have the New England IPAs that are much more palatable, but lower in the hops because of that, right? So actually, when I went to Europe, this is kind of a funny thing because I quite enjoy my beer, obviously. I went to Europe and I went bar hopping, and I probably hit 5 or 6 beer or let's say micro breweries or pubs in a span of, I don't know, 3 hours or something like that. But half the beer there was IPA because they're trying to match. It's also the easiest to make because if you screw up the batch, all you have to do is just throw more hops in it. And people are like, oh yeah, we just meant it to be super, super hoppy. But Americans have kind of just stolen the IPA and perfected the IPA. So while I was there, I didn't have any IPAs.
Right.
I was trying anything else that I would get specifically in Europe, but not that I would get here in America. So
that is weird. Like I don't think of IPA as being European at all anymore.
Right.
I feel like it's the American beer at this point.
Right. Like most things that we've done, America did it better.
Actually, that was we talked about that somewhere else about if there was right Paul about something about it was something. What has America like not done the best or something like that?
Oh yeah, what were we talking? Was it food?
I can't remember.
We don't the best. We have not been the worst. The best.
We've not been the worst. Yeah, we don't have to derail ourselves trying to remember what it was.
Well, so I will say I have I don't know much about beer, and I have this bias. I've always assumed that I don't like IPAs because I don't know. I feel like I've had a couple and it just taste. I haven't liked the taste of it, and so I didn't have very high hopes for this one. The beautiful woman on the can notwithstanding. But it doesn't come across in the video very well, especially when it disappears. But the color is very pleasing to look at. I really appreciate the
pale ale.
Yeah, I don't know. Just something about the color is really appealing. The smell was very unique to me. Like I think you probably noticed when I first smelled it, and the taste is also very unique. And I don't want to give away my rating too much, but I kind of like it. It's not quite as drinkable as some of the other beers we've had. I find myself drinking it slower, but I feel like it's because I'm savoring it more than previous beers. I
mean, an IPA is never going to, as smooth an IPA as you'll ever have. It's not going to be a Hell's, like it's not going to be like that or like that. So, I had the same opinion about IPAs until I discovered, New England IPAs, hazy IPAs, whatever you want to call them, right? Because I think it was like Jeremy said, the original like American IPA was Stone,
right?
And like that's now called the West Coast IPA, which is like hop bombs. Like Dogfish Head used to be all that. Like, and I still don't like most of Flying Dog, even though that's probably the biggest beer in Maryland. But there are very few Flying Dogs I like because they're so West Coast style.
Oh, damn hoppy.
Yeah, and Dogfish Head was like terrible. Like I went to the restaurant in like Rockville one time. I was like, I really don't like their beer, and maybe I would like it now, but I think like because that's what like 90 Minute is or something like that is like a super super hop. That's like the highest IBU I think beer.
Yeah. So. I actually, and here's a little bit of ignorance on me. And my brother works at a beer distributor, and so I learn a lot from him. But also, I have this, by the way, not that I'm plugging this, but the complete beer. I make no. Although my brother's name is Joshua, that's funny. I make no.
Is that an actual like textbook for a course or something, or is it just called the Complete Beer Course and it's a book in itself?
It's just a book in itself. It has a lot of information about a lot of different wine or beers, obviously.
Yeah, we have the wine. My wife has the wine Bible, so.
Yeah, right.
Blasphemous.
Jesus made wine, right?
Apparently, though, you can't tell the difference between white and red, so don't get a financial advisor.
Could Jesus have told the difference between a white and red wine?
I sure hope so. Otherwise, I need to change my religion. Yes. So I agree with you. I was talking to I believe it's a Cicerone that is the beer version of a sommelier. And the question, of course, comes up: why do I hate this so much? talking about IPAs. And as it turns out, almost everything in nature that is bitter is poisonous. So we have evolved to not appreciate the bitter flavor. Now you can force yourself to accept it and not to be revolted every time that you try it. And I actually quite enjoy. No, I like stronger flavors anyways. I like super spicy food. I have a terrible sense of smell, so I almost need these stronger flavors. But I actually appreciate the West Coast IPAs. But it is, I mean, you can't drink anything after it. You can't eat anything after it because your whole mouth is just completely blown out. There is no second chance. There's no mulligan.
And I think, like, I don't know. Granted, I drank a few of them many years ago and was like, nah, not for me. So I'm not an expert on West Coast IPAs. But with New England, like, there just seems to be like so many different flavors and styles. And I know people are gonna shout at me the West Coast IPA is the same thing, but like all I ever would taste was hops. While I was like, I don't quite get all the notes that some of the tasting notes say for some of these New England IPAs, but like what flavors of citrus or piney notes or this and that, or like currants or raisins or something in some of them. But like,
yeah.
They're more described in like fruity terms as opposed to like, here, this tastes like hops.
I mean, the deal is, if you're in a tulip garden and there are tulips all around you and there's a single rose, it's going to be really hard to smell the rose. And that's the way that the West Coast IPAs are, is that there's just so much hops that it's hard to taste anything else. And especially because hops are so polarizing anyways. It's just gonna fry your ability to taste anything else. But if you have a tulip and a rose, just one each, you might actually be able to distinguish the two.
So what's interesting though is like why, like, and again, I don't pay attention to the West Coast IPAs. I noticed like for the hazies and everything, most craft brewers at least will like specify exactly what hops they're using, right? And like none of these have ever specified like, hey, we're using hops X, Y, and Z. Like I don't even, but again, I don't drink West Coast, so maybe they do, but I haven't seen like them specify what hops. It seems like a very New England IPA thing to specify what three hops you used in this one.
Well, I think that when you boil it down or dial it down to the point where you can actually taste something else, and you can catch notes, side notes, then maybe it matters. But when you have the level so high, I mean, there's no way with a West Coast IPA that. Now I'm going to sound stupid with all of this, right? But like, it's just, and I like them, but they're just so burny, hot, as I like to say. Like, there's just no way you're going to be able to say, oh, yeah, I definitely taste the chocolate notes on that one. And now, interestingly enough, the reason I think that they don't do it on the German version of this, and I love how much German is actually on the can. And it reminds me that my 3 years of German in high school were absolutely worthless. Absolutely worthless. But I mean, I can barely taste any hops. So I agree with you. It's pleasant to drink. But if somebody were to hand me this blindfolded, I would never call it an IPA.
Yeah, that was my reaction to it. Is like, we're sitting here talking about West Coast and New England. Like, it's neither.
It's neither, right? This is, what I found out is that there's West Coast, and there's New England IPAs, right, or hazy IPAs, however you want to call it. But some places also refer to places as an EPA, which is an England Pale Ale, which is funny to me because that's kind of the one that started the whole thing. But that is by far the most mild of all of them. And I assume that this is just a brewery, and I've never heard of this brewery before. Although I researched it, it turned out that when I lived in Germany when I was 9, I was about 6 hours away from this brewery.
I think Germany's the right size where you're just 6 hours away from everything, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And considering I was basically on the border of France, basically, if I were in the middle of Germany, then I would be 3 hours away from everything.
Are you
Yeah,
implying
yeah.
that when you were 9, you weren't visiting breweries and trying out beers?
You said couldn't you walk? You said if you could walk up and give them money, they would give you a beer.
I did say that last time, didn't I? Let me drink that for just a moment before I get my parents.
Also, though, to follow on with my analyzation of New England IPAs and to show off your shirt about hang on, let me overanalyze this, right? Or overthink this.
Yeah.
It's not a spreadsheet to my credit. It's just a document. But I've tried to like write out like, hey, this beer had these hops in it. And this beer had the Because what I was trying to figure out was like, was there a pattern to like, okay, I liked that one and that one.
Yeah, right.
And not that one. All right, what hops were in the ones I liked versus the one I didn't like, so I could try to start focusing. All right, I like this hop versus not this hop.
So this is going to completely go off of beer. But one of the things that I do is machine learning, right? So what I would say is this: if you could just drink 1,000 beers,
if I can Monte Carlo it.
Yeah. No. So, but close, right? So the problem is with machines is that they don't learn nearly as quickly as humans. Humans only need a couple samples at a time. But if you're looking for a computer to do it, big data is necessary for machine learning. So just drink 1,000 beers, rank them all, and list all of the ingredients. And then we can put in ingredients and then guess if you're going to like it or not. So then we can do that.
We'll guess if it's a cat picture.
Right, exactly.
I think I want to taste a beer that has been brewed by an AI or via machine learning. I think that'd be really interesting.
That's coming. You know that. Everything else has been made
already.
Everything else has been made by AIs. There's going to be beer made by AIs.
I'm sure if you do a Google search for AI brewery, there are results. I'm sure.
People can let us know in the comments. Yeah.
So I'm going to poo-poo on that just a little bit. I don't actually like the term AI because it brings up Skynet. Instead of artificial intelligence, which is really not what it is, because their ability. So intelligence and wisdom are two different things, right? Wisdom is your
D&D taught us that.
I was gonna say it doesn't tell us anything. It's chaotic neutral and wisdom versus intelligence.
So intuition is actually a subset of wisdom, right? And so when we come up to a problem as a human being, we don't analyze everything and say, oh, I have to only gather the information that I have in front of me to decide. I can actually just read the IPA and say, okay, well, I can think about all of the IPAs that I've already had. And I know how I feel about IPAs. I've experienced this before. I can actually bring in past experiences to help me judge this current situation. Machines don't do that well. Machines instead take the present and just look forward, where humans mostly take the present, look backward, and look only a little bit forward.
Yeah, I was going to kind of compare, like, from what I understand, I know you're strong interest in chess yourself and the AI behind chess. Sorry. That humans are very intuitive when it comes to chess, right? In terms of like, they look at the board and they're like, all right, this kind of looks like something I've seen before. How's that work? They're not like down to like, oh yes, this pawn was here and this rook was here and this. They're not like, it's just like, this looks kind of like what I saw before.
Yeah.
You can't.
It has the themes. It has the sub elements.
And it takes a long time for like, what is it, Alpha Zero or whatever it's called?
Yeah, right.
It takes a long time, or actually not that long a time anymore now, I guess, but it took a long time for computers to get to that type of level.
Right, so Alpha Zero trained for 4 hours, I believe. But in the meantime, played
long time, see?
Yeah, right. But it played 7 million games. And that's where the long time comes in, right? So if a human had the intuition based off of 7 million games, there would be nothing ever that could beat it. The thing is that humans they ingest information so much slower than a computer can that that there is no human that has a database in their head of 7 million games. They've never learned off of that many games. So
even if you've looked at 7 million games, there's no way you have like the recall that a computer has of 7 million games.
I mean, to analyze 7 million games as a human being, right? So a million seconds is 11 days. So there is no way that you're going to, as a human being, be able to actually put any time to 7 million games. handle this engine, right? So there is, and yeah, to put that in perspective, right? 1 billion. We did this in math in 6th grade. Not that I'm recalling that at all, but one of the questions that happened in our 6th grade math class is how many years is 1 billion seconds? It turns out to be about 33 years, right? So if it takes you 1,000 seconds, which is not unreasonable to analyze a game, it is going to take you 33 years of straight time. That's not including sleep. That is just from start to finish. It's going to take you that much for just 1 billion.
Yeah, I read, to slightly keep going down this, there's a book, some sort of book I read where like some girl, a picture book for my kids, where some girl calls up the gardener and she tries to order, like, there's some sort of plant called trilliums.
Okay.
Like, and the gardener mishears it and thinks she orders 1 trillion trees and delivers that. And I was like, all right, kids, let me show you something. If you could plant a tree a second, here's how many years it would take you to plant all the trees.
33,000 years, yep.
And I was like, they just couldn't even understand it. They were like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's too big of a number.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So the idea of 7 million games is necessary for AlphaZero to be the strongest chess engine that has ever existed. But if a human had that kind of had that pool to build its intuition off of, there is no way that anything ever could beat it, because we learn so much faster than a computer. The difference is that a computer can learn based off of so much more data, because it can process data so much faster than we can.
Right.
So instead of AI, where artificial intelligence, the AI, I normally call it ML, but if I call it AI, I refer to it as artificial intuition. And at the end of the day, it's just dot products. So the problem is not that it's going to become self-aware. The problem with AI or ML is that somebody's going to hook it up to a switch that it should never be hooked up to, and allow it to make a decision that has a consequence that a human's not in the loop for, that a human should be in the loop for. That is going to be the ultimate problem with ML. So
have I ever told you what, because Paul and I tried to collaborate on our senior year high school project.
Oh, that's right. You guys went to high school together.
So Paul was supposed to do graphics.
What do you mean supposed to? The graphics were far better than the AI.
The graphics were far better because I never actually finished the AI. I wrote a very good paper, so I passed the course, but I didn't write a single line of code.
Who would have thought that Travis could have bullshit his way through a paper?
But like, remember, and there are high schoolers that could do this, not me. Like, the whole AI theory was going to be like, oh, we're going to just drop this guy into this village, and he has to, and like, he'll have like an attribute, like he gets hungry, and he's like, be like, oh, like I need to eat. Like, he'll have that built in, and he'll go to the bread guy and be like, I want bread, and the guy will be like, I need money, and he needs to figure out, how do I get money, and like how to go get money that he can go buy that. How I ever thought I was going to actually program this AI.
That is super ambitious. We didn't realize how hard that would be.
All I knew was like, there's things called genetic algorithms and neural networks.
Yeah, right.
Put them together and it will learn and just work magically if I weight every node and everything. And I was like, nah, I downloaded something off the internet. It didn't work, and I was like, fine, whatever. I'll write a paper. And
right. You mean back when the internet was new?
Paul made some sort of graphics where like the guy's arms like spun all the way around through his body.
Listen,
or something.
if you keep the variables enough, then they contort themselves in grotesque ways.
Come on, man! You had Half-Life to compare yourself to, and you drew that.
Oh, that's fair.
I'm sorry, I fell short of Val's.
No, that's that, and then we've talked about, Paul and I know have talked about imposter syndrome before. Like, going to the high school we went to, it was very easy to have imposter syndrome because, like, I mean, we had classmates in our grade like getting government grants to do the work that they were doing at our school.
Yeah.
Or maybe not at our school, but like they were getting government grants to like do it like right after, like. And I'm like, right. So whenever I got out of school, people are like, "Oh, like you're so smart," and it's like, no, I know who smart people are.
Yeah, right.
I went to school with smart people.
I went to school with smart people,
yeah.
But like it takes a very long time to admit, like, no, like and it feels bad to say like you're smart because that implies like other people are dumb, right?
Right.
That's the hard part about calling yourself smart is like you're selling other people are dumb. It's like, well,
I think the thing I learned from high school is that there will always be somebody smarter than you, at least in certain things, like if not in everything, right? But at least in like the things that you hold dear, there will always be someone better than you.
To your point, like you're gonna be able to find somebody better at you in each thing, but each person is not better at you at everything. Like John Carmack is a by far better programmer, but maybe he sucks at personal finance. I have no idea. Sorry, John Carmack, but
he's horribly in debt.
It's that level of thing. Like everybody maximizes their strengths and then like has weaknesses and just learns to work around their weaknesses. Yeah.
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen will beat me in chess every day of the week, but you know what? I think maybe I can hold my own through the ages.
I certainly have more children than he does, so nailed it.
Than Magnus? Yeah. Okay.
Than Magnus Carlsen? Oh yeah.
More prolific sperm.
Here's the thing, by the way: a definition of fitness is your ability to reproduce, and so as such, I am one of the fittest people I know.
So
I'm fitter than Travis.
Yeah, you have fine. You have 3 versus 2, sure. And
but by the way, 2 to the 3rd is the number of children I have.
You have or about to have?
Well, it depends. So, I mean, certainly you've already brought up my
ability.
Catholicism.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Like
correct. You had your 8th child like 9 months ago. Sure. Okay.
Yes. So let me put it this way: is that if she miscarried at this point, it'd be called birth. Yeah, so she's 37 weeks and 2 days or something like that. So at this point, this baby, unless it dies during birth, there is no such thing as not a baby, right? So so yes, and this would be number 8.
I totally forget where I was going with something.
Well, you said 2 and he said 3, and I thought, oh my goodness, like 8 is 2 to the 3rd.
There's a mathematician.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
You were talking about imposter syndrome, and what you really learned in high school is that you're not as smart as the other people you went to high school with.
That's what I really learned, yes.
Yeah. Well, you're just talking about the definition of fitness is having a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And I was fitter than you.
I had something to say about the definition of fitness, and it's gone.
But there's something about having you on our videos where trains of thought just go completely off the rails.
I blame them. This is only 6%.
It's probably
which is really light for an IPA, by the way.
Yeah, for an IPA is kind of on the easy side.
It's probably the image right there.
This is almost like a session IPA. It still looks like for Connolly.
I'm glad everybody. Most of the time when I say like somebody looks like something or somebody else, they're like, "No, you're wrong."
Well, so I don't actually believe you, but I'm just going with the flow.
He's being agreeable.
No, I'm just kidding. So, like, obviously, she has very dark features, and she is a gorgeous woman. So, like, this animated woman is also beautiful. So there you go.
Would she be a 9?
If I met this person in real life.
Would you let her in through the window that she's trying desperately to get in through?
Or would you condemn her to death?
No, I would probably... Okay, so I got to be careful, right? So
we're all married men here.
She's not... Your wife's not going to... Your wife is never going to watch this.
None of our wives are going to watch this.
I can't even force tell my wife about my life. So there's no way in hell she's going to watch this.
No way in IPA.
And that's exactly right. No way in IPA. Thank you for already catching that. I would save her life in the sense that I believe that her life is worth living. But I would purposely stay the hell away from her because that is a very attractive woman.
So maybe you would save her life and then, teach her some of the scripture and be like, hey, I'll save your eternal life.
Yeah. So maybe let me clarify on this whole Catholic thing that Travis said earlier. I don't share scripture with anybody. It's I don't even hardly know scripture as a Catholic. So as such, I instead, and that's a running gag with my Protestant friends. But as such, yeah. Instead, I would just show you. I would just tell you what all the Pope said about it. Yeah, and so yeah, I would definitely disassociate with her very quickly and say, you need to put some clothes on, and I'm married and I have 8 children, and I doubt that you are as fertile as my wife, so I'm not interested.
That's some blunt advice. I don't even know what that
At
is.
40 years old, I don't have time to mess around.
So well, this potentially derails us entirely, and we're running out of our allotted time. But based on the rules that you have to follow being Catholic,
yeah,
couldn't having an infertile wife be ideal?
So okay. So let me respond to this way. There are a couple sentences that all go together with your statement. One is children are a gift from God.
Okay.
And there have been saints, I think Mother Teresa said, how can you have too many children? It's like having too many roses. That's all true. Okay. Now, with that in mind, keep that in mind, that, and I love every one of my children. I do, although I would give a couple away very quickly, and I've got a list of the order of which I would give them.
That's why you have so many, so you can just get rid of some, right?
I have extras. That's exactly right. And they're genetically similar enough that I could not feel bad about losing a couple.
And at least one is going to like you when you're old and need to be taken care of.
Right. Out of 8 children, the thing is that my approval rating is I'm going to leave that alone. I am not going to go there with approval rating. But, okay, so that being said, when we had our first, and actually our first kid was born 10 months after our wedding. Right, so unless she was very, very overdue, I can guarantee that this kid was conceived in wedlock. But if she didn't come along, then so be it. If she was the only one, then so be it. And when the next one came along 2 years later, if he was the last one, then so be it. And so now we're at 8, and if this is the last one, then so be it. That's how we felt. Everybody's just like, well, are you doing anything are you going to have more? Like, I didn't plan on having the first. So if I have a 9th, then I have a 9th. If I have a 10th, then I have a 10th. And at this point, I've already got a 13-year-old, almost 14-year-old that's able to watch all of the kids anytime I want to take my wife out on a date. So what difference does it make?
Makes it even easier now.
It makes it even easier, right? So I feel bad for the ones that have 4 kids, 6 and under. Yeah, right. That's exactly right. Hey, so can you go watch the kids while your mother and I go fill more room? Yeah, that's. I had a priest at one point. Now he has passed, and I tip a glass to an empty glass apparently to his soul. But he said, "Do you have 8 kids?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, congratulations, that's awesome. How many bedrooms do you have?" And I said, "I have 3 bedrooms." And he said, "Oh, wow. Yeah, well, that's really all you need. You need a boys' room, a girls' room, and a room for the parents to fill the other 2 rooms." And I have taken that very seriously.
All right. And on that, I think we've all
so serious. Sorry.
Think on that, we've all finished our beer.
What? the tip of the empty beer, yeah. So
because I knew we could totally derail ourselves by going further down my original comment.
I mean, I certainly love talking about fertility. So we're good.
There we go. So not based on the can, but not even initial thoughts. But like,
wrapping up thoughts.
I think we've all said like this. It's not a typical American IPA. I think that's what the big thing we all came away from with this, right?
I would say it's not even a typical IPA.
I just don't have the experience with non-American IPAs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know crap about IPAs. I couldn't tell you what a hop even tastes like. I have tasted a hop before, and I know it tasted disgusting. Very.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
It's bitter, right? Like that's like the overwhelming.
Super bitter.
Yeah. But I was expecting not to like this based on my previous experience with IPAs, and I was pleasantly surprised. I like the color, I like the smell, I like the taste. Everything about it was a pleasant surprise. Again, it wasn't as drinkable as some of the lighter beers that we've had, but you all are smelling it and like, what the hell is he talking about? This is
like, did he get a different beer?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I got a different sense of smell. I don't know. I was just pleasantly surprised across the board. So not to telegraph too much, but I enjoyed myself tonight.
Yeah, and then like, I would still reach. Just that's my personal preference. I would still reach for a New England IPA over this, but this for something labeled as just an IPA, I enjoyed this one. This like 10 years ago, I would have been shocked that this was labeled an IPA, and maybe I don't know. Maybe the Germans don't know what an IPA actually is. I don't know, but
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would. I mean, since you guys said something. I would say that it's an extremely light IPA, and honestly, as I said before, if I were blindfolded, I'm not sure that I could even tell you it's an IPA.
Yeah, you don't really get a slap in the face with hops at all in this one.
And even the characteristic that it normally stands out with IPAs is citrus, right? Like they'll have something like a grapefruit or something that they'll claim some really citrusy fruit. And now, in the case of grapefruit, it's also bitter, right? So they can kind of get by with whatever they want. I think they're fudging the numbers a little bit, but there's not even a hint of citrus in this.
No.
So yeah, I think that as far as an IPA is concerned, it has no characteristics of an IPA.
Yeah, it's like a. Just to use Hell because that's what most of these beers have been. It's kind of just like a slightly heavier Hells in a way.
Yeah,
is kind of how I would characterize it more than an IPA.
Right.
They called it an IPA, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we rank it? Do the
Sure.
Go.
Red Air style. All right. 3, 2, 1. Wow, 2 thumbs up and a thumbs
okay.
down. It's kind of hard to show my thumbs up here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I make sure that it's all the way down on that.
No, you don't have the virtual background. You don't have the Marty McFly problem idea.
Yeah, my background is authentic. This
Yeah.
is actually my pub area that's in my basement.
It's an impressive background.
Yeah, so it makes a very good background.
Yeah.
So I gave it a thumbs down, not because it was an enjoyable beer. I thought it was actually quite enjoyable. But I feel as though it should be ranked upon the name of the beer.
Yeah.
And as such, it is actually not a good IPA.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of. I kind of straddled that, like, right? Like, I think Paul and I both said, like, 10 years ago, what was called an IPA we didn't like.
You kind of straddle that? Oh,
I'm kind of.
Why are you not showing up now?
Other way around, right? She has to straddle, whatever. But damn it, train of thought. No, like I guess unfairly, just because it's called IPA, it's not. There's not a New England or a West Coaster. I'm comparing it to what was an IPA 10, 15 years ago, and from that regard, I'm like, this is great compared to that. Now, yeah, if I compared it to like the IPAs I drink now. It's borderline. It's not over hopped, so that's why I gave it a thumbs up. Basically, it's an IPA that I don't taste all the hops in.
Right. So one of my favorite ways of describing things is the reason I enjoy this is because it doesn't taste like it should. Right. So the reason that I like sour beers is because it tastes more like a shandy, or it tastes like a lemonade, or it tastes like something that is not beer. The only reason that I ever like sour beers is because they taste like something other than beer. So in this particular case, what you're basically saying, if I understand you correctly, is that the reason I like this IPA is because it doesn't taste like an IPA.
Yeah, I guess that's a good summation. Sure.
Right. Which is precisely why I ranked it low.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't enjoy it. I actually quite enjoyed it. And it obviously also made for very good conversation. But it's just as far as an IPA goes, there are, bells. Oh my goodness. Like there are so many good IPAs.
That's what's on your tap.
I have a 4-tap. You know Travis, right? Obviously, but I have a 4-tap. There it is. I have a 4-tap kegerator that's sitting right there, and I have had Bell's on tap more than once. And I mean, it's just simply one of the best IPAs that you can possibly get.
Yeah. I think Google is telling us that it's time to call it a night.
Yeah,
That's my bad for not calling it earlier. Well, thank you all for joining me, and hope you all enjoyed this episode. And can't stop the discourse.